What is a smart city?
Our civilization has reached a point where we can no longer think bigger. We now have to think smarter. All around the world, there are transformative cities doing incredible things, and it's time to sit up and listen. It's time to make a difference for ourselves and for our planet. My name is Anna. I'm a musician, writer, and creator who, like most people alive in the 21st century, lives a life ruled by technology. And this is my mom, Chief Innovation Officer, tech entrepreneur, social equality pioneer.
Welcome to San Leandro!
We are traveling the world.
At least that's what we were going to be doing. It's a tale as old as time, right? You set out to do a TV show exploring what a modern smart city is, and then a pandemic happens, and you're forced to pivot to a podcast. My name is Anna Acosta. I am a writer, musician, and general rabble-rouser, and I'm here with my mom, Debbie Acosta, former Chief Innovation Officer and glass ceiling breaker.
So when you think of a smart city, you think about smart buildings and smart energy, smart cars, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, smart data, smart transportation, green energy, telemedicine. Stop me if you've heard this stuff. We're ready to redefine what is smart in our cities.
Today on Smart City Diaries, we want to establish a framework.
Electrical infrastructure,
Big data.
everything useful and accurate I've ever learned about blockchain, I've learned from Jeremy Goodwin.
At the end of the day, it's all about opportunity.
It's about people. It's
And
about
community.
serving
I like that.
people. This isn't just about how you use data. It's about how data uses you.
This all connects to itself. And the fact of the matter is, we got to know what the problem is before we can fix it.
So we want to be able to stimulate conversation. We want people to be able to be brave and empathetic and to really get outside their box.
Because what we're trying to do here is identify how we fix humanity. I know, no small task, right?
There's huge opportunities to take the matters into our own hands and to create the future that we want for ourselves and for our children and grandchildren.
And it's the Smart City Diaries. We're signing off. See you next time.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Smart City Diaries podcast launch event. We are so honored to have each and every one of you here today. I hope you all enjoyed that brief introduction to the podcast, TV show turned podcast. And now we will be actually introducing our team and starting with myself. So my name is Mary Jessie Celestin. I'm dubbed an associate producer and the Gen Z voice for the Smart Cities team. I just graduated from Harvey Mudd College with a bachelor's degree in engineering, and I'm on my way to UC Berkeley for my master's in civil engineering. I'm the founder of San Jose Strong, which is a grassroots organization for San Jose to reinvent San Jose by connecting folks to resources. I'm also a creative, a musician, fantasy author. I love the concepts of world building. So when I got introduced to Deborah and Anna, this dynamic duo, I knew I had to be a part of the team. And so that's a little bit about me. Now I'll be introducing the rest of the team.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anna, and so I'm a writer, I'm a musician, and I'm also your co-host of Smart City Diaries. I am, well, Debbie. Sounds weird to say Debbie, but I'm Debbie's daughter. And basically, anyone who knows her knows she is the Smart Cities person, and I'm very grateful to be along for the ride. We're going to learn a lot. Hopefully, you guys learn with us. And with no further ado, I believe that leads us to...
Oh, hi. I'm her mom. So glad that she's along for the ride. And this whole journey for me it's been quite a few years in the making, but most recently as Chief Innovation Officer for the city of San Leandro, where I was really responsible for bringing together a community that would bring tech and innovation to the city. It really became clear to me that while a lot of people outside the city knew what was happening and the work that we were doing, inside the city, not so much, and especially young people. So we're really here today to make sure that we enlarge this community of smart city people so that there's a better understanding by a larger number of people about what smart cities are, and most specifically, how you can engage in it to become the change that you want to see. So the next person on our team
is Brandon. So we've been talking a little bit about the hosts. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So we're super excited to introduce Brandon.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brandon. I'm the director and co-creator for Smart City Diaries, as well as a documentary filmmaker, cinematographer, and editor. This project has really been a labor of love for all of us on the team. And after 2 years and a few reimaginings, we now have the Smart City Diaries podcast. It's going to be talked about. This used to be a TV show. We're working on a podcast. We have many other ideas that are going to be a part of this whole thing over the next few years. So we're so excited and humbled to finally see our work out in the wild, and we hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to pass it over to Zach.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? I am Zach. And for myself, I normally work in digital marketing, events, and a whole bunch of other lines of work, sometimes even education. But today, for Smart City Diaries, as it says in my name, I'm the Zach of all trades. Hope you enjoy that wordplay there. But basically what I do is I do the graphics, the social media, sometimes if needed, run coffee if anyone happens to be on site, or just about anything that needs to be happening. So for myself, Smart City Diaries is a great way for us to get involved with the youth and get involved with the older population, connect the two together and figure out what really builds a better city and a better world. So hope you enjoy the show and everything we have going on planned. After that, I'm going to be passing it over to Anne, I believe. Yeah.
Hi, gang. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name is Ann Marcus, and I'm a communications strategy consultant with the Marcus Consulting Group. I've been with tech for a long time, going on 4 decades now, and I've worked in major tech publications. I've worked on teams managing 50,000 attendee tech industry events. I worked in knowledge management and collaboration technologies as an industry analyst, and a lot of the time I spend crafting messages that communicate important ideas to different audiences and inspire them to respond. I've been involved with the Smart City Diaries project now for about 2 years, since kind of the beginning, and have worked with Debbie and Anna and the team to help with honing the messaging and brainstorming approaches. And recently, I'm moving into the role of producer and still being an advisor. So my involvement with Smart Cities, pardon me, goes back about 12 years. I started with the Smart Connected Communities group at Cisco. And I have been, for the last 2 years, the communications lead for Link Oregon, which does fiber broadband for the public and nonprofit sectors here in the state of Oregon, where I live. And as we know, broadband and connectivity are the foundations for any smart city activity, and we'll discuss that further during this. I'm also part of the GCTC, the Global City Teams Challenge, which is a community of practice and a public-private partnership with the government and with individual organizations that are researching and working in the area of smart cities to kind of uncover what the opportunities are, what the lessons learned are. And I belong to the Education Supercluster and as well to the leadership group, and it's been fascinating. I have an undergraduate degree in sociology and an MBA in decision support systems. And so I continue to be and have always been fascinated at the intersection where people and technology meet. So thank you very much for being here. We're excited.
Thank you, Anne. So now you've gotten a little bit of a snapshot of what our TV show turned podcast is all about. You've met the hosts and you've met the team alongside them. And now it's time to get engaged with the event itself. And so we will be passing it on to Anna to talk about why we're here.
For those of us who like to wax poetic about the I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that to you guys. So we introduced ourselves. I'm Anna. I'm going to be doing this with my mom, who I'm going to refer to as mom. I hope that's not too weird for you guys, but I just can't do the Debbie thing all night. Why are we here? Why do you ever wonder why we're here in this Zoom?
In this Zoom, well, we've been wondering for about 2.5 years, and today we're making it a reality. So really what we want to talk about, what we want to launch today is a conversation about whether putting technology at the center of smart cities really is smart. I mean, Anna, what could go wrong with that?
Well, I think the central theme of what we're trying to do here, and when I say here, I mean the podcast in general. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. We are not going to try to answer this question in the next 5 minutes. I promise. But I think the central theme of what we're trying to do here is, for me, this all boils down to equity. That is something that we don't see a whole lot of in the way our cities, especially our smart cities, are currently framed. Usually it's very gatekeepy. It's very much this is our club, and if you don't understand the club, you're not smart enough to be in it, and therefore you don't matter. We don't really think that that's what a smart city should be. So is technology involved? Absolutely. But for me, that central theme is equity. So that is sort of what we're trying to explore here.
And when you talk about equity, it's really for a city. So cities are responsible for very specific services. Most of these services are outlined in general planning documents and specific plans and all those geeky kind of government kinds of documents that most of us will never read, right?
Bureaucracy.
But those documents are important because that will tell you what the city leaders think is important. Whether or not they engaged and how much they engage with their citizens is really behind some of the questions that we have. And in the past, so cities basically, their basic responsibility is to provide baseline services. So if you think about where you get your food, so food security, being able to communicate via broadband on your computer, being able to be safe in your home and on the street.
Having a home.
Having a home. So these are fixing the potholes. So cities are determined, for the most part, to provide certain baseline services. And it's important for us because, especially as Americans, we came together under the premise that it is our right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Well, where can we typically do that? We do that in the cities that we live in. So if we're living in cities that are willing to protect us and to provide us equitable access to baseline services and to really understand post-COVID, post-Black Lives Matter, post-Asian American Pacific Islanders Against Hate, all the social unrest that we've gone through, the increased homelessness, the debt crisis, public safety issues, if we understand that those are the baseline services the cities provide and that technology is a tool that can help cities get there, then we start to examine, well, what are the underlying premises of how safe that technology is, and can we trust it? So,
and are the cities even providing it?
And that's what we want to talk about. And we want to make sure that you, as our listeners, are actually then leaving today and after watching future podcasts and looking at your own cities and seeing whether or not you are happy with the way that those policies and those services are being rolled out, and how you can get engaged, right, to be the change that you want to see. So we're going to begin at the beginning. And Anna, where's the beginning for us in this?
Well, the beginning here, actually, I'm not sure which answer Mom was hoping for there, but I think for us the point here is that we know that the only way you can do this kind of work is to establish a framework of trust. And so what we want to do, how we want to be, different than the other girls at the Harvest Moon Ball, the way we want to differentiate ourselves is that this is a conversation. We don't know everything. We absolutely are going to get it wrong sometimes. And we plan on learning right in front of you in real time, which is sort of the antithesis of how people in tech tend to operate, right? They're always right. And if you don't agree, it's a you problem. We're not doing that here. So that is where we start for me. It's just establishing that we are going to be learning and growing in real time right along with you guys.
Right.
And that is the only way that you shouldn't just take our word for it. You should be skeptical. You should absolutely call us, hit us up on Twitter or on our Patreon or wherever we may be, on the Discord, which you guys all have access to because you're here. All of that stuff, we want it to be basically a dialogue.
Right.
And so where does it start for me, Mom? It starts with trust.
Fantastic.
We have to earn that.
And that was the perfect answer from you. And for me, the perfect answer is, well, we're going to start with infrastructure.
Oh, so she meant literally. She meant literally, where do we start?
So we're
This is
good
the
because
podcast.
we're all hearing a lot about it, right? In the United States, we have a president and a Democratic Party who's really interested in pushing forward infrastructure bills. There's a lot of money that's going to be coming into our system. And we want you, our readers, to be watching this and making sure your own city leaders are paying attention to it and understanding how important these issues are for you. So in the beginning, what we're going to be talking about, communications infrastructure, yes, broadband, power and energy, water, and transportation will be the really focus. We'll be talking about things like blockchain. How do these infrastructure ecosystems work? Are they built to serve everyone in the community equitably? And what are the challenges cities face when deciding how to invest taxpayer funds? Who benefits and who doesn't?
Who foots the bill and who doesn't?
Yeah, so we want to be your trustworthy and trusted guides to the world of innovation and technology, especially where technologies are transforming cities and the lives of our listeners who live in these cities. So Anna, what's our goal?
Our goal here is we want to build a community. And I know a lot of people say that, and a lot of times it's just a buzzword. And that really just means we want you to listen to us talk forever, which, I mean, kind of, it is a podcast, but stay with me. We want to actually try to build a real community here of people who are invested in this, of people who are, this is not, I mean, we're a millennial and a boomer, but this is not, we kind of want to step away from how hyper individualized the generational identity has become. We want to really shed light on the people who don't usually get to talk, don't get any time on the microphone. We want to really start to engage with everyone because whether we like each other or not, we are all stuck on this planet together. Unless you're a billionaire, in which case, I guess they're in space now. Not the point. We'll get there. Point is, we are in a pivotal moment for humanity. We have some decisions to make, and we think that the best way we're going to survive this, as with as many of us left as possible, is by building that community. And so what is our goal, Mom? Our goal is to get everybody, if not on the same page, but at least in the same book and willing to read other people's pages.
Right. So with that, we're going to start to engage you, our community, in our first exercise. And it's a really fun word cloud. So we're going to turn this back to Mary, and she is going to help us through this exercise.
Thank you, Anna and Deborah, for giving that boomer meets millennial voice into the conversation of what makes our cities tick. And now we have some questions for you. We set up this event in a particular way where we're going to ask you 3 questions where you get to write down your answers. We'll go through how you'll be able to do this, and we're going to populate a word cloud. So we'll see which words pop up the most from all of the participants who are submitting. And then our panelists will be answering the same exact questions. So we really wanted this to be everybody's answering the questions. There is no difference between you, the audience, and us, the panelists, in this conversation and discussion. And so that is the next few minutes, handful of minutes that we have in this event going forward. So we can move on to the next slide, and Zach will be dropping some links in the chat for everybody. This is an overview of kind of what it's going to look like once I start screen sharing. You'll be able to see things popped up. This was a demo that we did, a practice one. You could see Zach wrote a lot of he's.
This is Zach's fault.
But yes, so you'll be able to see what are the words that really pop up when you answer these questions. And so we can go to the next slide. So for question 1, it's when you think of a smart city, what comes to mind? So think, what does a smart city look like to you? What does smart mean? What are all these things? What encapsulates it? There's, I think, like 10 submission answers, so you can write a bunch of different thoughts. It's anonymous, so nobody's going to know which thought was yours, so you can truly say what you're thinking and feeling. And yeah, if you go to the menti.com link that's dropped in the chat, that'll pop up on your desktop and you can type in, or you can go to menti.com and use the code. They both go to the same direction. And so I can start screen sharing once folks get in. Folks are already popped in, so we're gonna screen share so you guys can see. So can everybody, well, you guys can't talk, so you could like do some thumbs up reaction.
And hang out in the chat.
Say in the chat what you're
Well, that's
seeing.
great. Lots of people are really working the chat room right now. Thank you. That's great.
Nice.
I love it when this kind of stuff, I mean, I didn't get to play with it that much because I was too busy doing community engagement kind of stuff. This is so much fun to see this kind of technology pop up.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out which website would be the best thing to do.
Easiest to use, not all of them are easy.
Free.
Yeah.
Data innovation.
And so we'll give everybody another minute to keep on submitting.
Yeah, keep them coming.
And by the way, this is no judgment. Whatever you think, whatever you want to put in there. We're trying to figure out what you're interested in and what you know, what you'd like to know more of. That's really the point.
So I think that this is a good place to stop. You're welcome to keep on adding more thoughts if you'd like, but I think if we wanted to look at what we see right here, it's pretty interesting. You know, technology, that tends to come up a lot when you think smart city, innovation, but some other really big words were agriculture, communication, equity, efficient, resilient, sharing, collaboration or collaborative. So those two words came up a lot. And then you see a lot of cool words all around the periphery, things like coffee conversations or decision making or community focused or infrastructure, courage, automation, a lot of different things that could encompass a smart city. And so not everybody has one definition. That we shouldn't have one definition that really can give us a good sense of what things can look like. I think it's a good way to segue to our second question, if Zach wants to drop the links in the chat. So the next question is, can you name a smart city? So we were just thinking more in the abstract of what does a smart city look like? Now let's ground it back into reality. Can you name a smart city? Anything come to mind? And so I'll be screen sharing the second board.
There's so many good things happening out there. I was just reading at Chattanooga today. I was really impressed that they have a pilot project where they have about 30 cameras installed along MLK Boulevard, which takes videos, air sensors, etc. But they have decided that they actually extract the data. They don't save the video. They extract the data into non-recognizable data, so not personalized, and then they destroy the video, which I think is really an interesting way of putting it. I know here in San Leandro, there's a big reluctance in the city that I live in to actually use cameras because people are rightfully very concerned about privacy issues. So the question really is, what is a smart city? And that's what we really want to explore.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love seeing San Jose on here, and I love San Jose. For me, though, it's not the innovation or the tech hubs that I think make San Jose smart. I really think it's just the community organizing community in San Jose. We had some super exciting news just the other day. For those who are unfamiliar, San Jose was dealing with a situation with our Berryessa flea market, 60 years old, cultural hub of the community, provides jobs for hundreds of people. And we were in a conundrum where with the BART, talking transportation, Bay Area Rapid Transit has a new station in Berryessa, and the developers want to the landowners want to develop that land and displace the existing vendors. And so through a lot of community organizing with development, not displacement, there were some really key agreements that came to fruition with the Planning Commission and the city just this past day or so. And that was really powerful. That was 6, 7, 8 months of concentrated effort, along with years of outstanding effort from the vendors and their association. And so there's still a long way to go when it looks to what that space is going to be in the future, but that's something that I think, wow, San Jose is smart. Look at what our community did.
And it wasn't about technology at all. It was about people and services, that longstanding services in the community that people have come to enjoy. So how do we protect that? And by the way, that market is being displaced by a huge new Google development. So that's the issue. That's the issue right there. That's where technology and cities kind of collide, and where, as Mary pointed out, it's really important for people to become engaged with their cities, because in fact, you can make a difference, right? Here in the United States, through your vote, regardless of the stuff you're hearing in Washington, D.C. right now, on a local level, through your vote and through your engagement with city leaders and with your community, right? With people who live in your neighborhood, you can, in fact, make a difference. And that's the point.
And people really underestimate local elections and local decisions and what that looks like.
Well, in cities, this is where rubber hits the road, right? This is literally where the potholes get filled. This is literally where people live. This is literally where you look to solve problems. We don't look to Washington, D.C. or even Sacramento to solve our daily problems. I call Mayor Cutter, right? And it's here in San Leandro. You call your mayor, you call your city council, you call your city representatives, you call your planning commissioners. And we want to make sure you know how to do that and who those people are. All right, how are we doing there? We got some pretty good, really interesting ideas here.
I think it's a good time to close this section. If everyone wanted to take a minute, again, for anyone new who came in, we are screen sharing some questions. Everyone is brainstorming on this collaborative word cloud, that's the word. And we were looking at, can you name a smart city? And so here are some examples that your peers have come up with. And now we will segue to our last and final question for the group. Zach will be dropping it in the chat, the link to access it. The question is, when it comes to creating a smart city, where does smart start? So, we started by identifying what encompasses a smart city. Then we started, grounding ourselves, imagining where are there existing smart cities right now? So what made them smart cities? Where does smart start? How do you start with a smart city? That's this third question. We have the links in the chat, so you can click that link to open it on your desktop, or you can go to menti.com and use the code directly. And so we will be screen sharing again, and then we'll be checking out the chat to see some answers, to answer anybody who's asking questions in the chat shortly.
So I love some of this stuff, Mary. Student government. I wouldn't have thought of that as something where people could start, but I love that. That's really great. Of course, and at home. And I get what that means, right? It's smart starts literally where you live. Legislation, yep. And we hope to be able to share more of that in the weeks to come. Community listening, yep. I love this. This is great. And then, of course, there's the other stuff, right? Traffic navigation. Traffic, the transportation, the congestion. I don't know about where all of you live, but here in the Bay Area, no one's going back to public transportation yet. And so our roads are already jammed, even though not everyone's back at work in the office, so.
And after a fun technical difficulty, because what would a tech podcast launch be without one of those? I'm back.
I'm glad you're back.
It's like I was never
cleaning
gone.
robots. Okay, that's brilliant. House cleaning robots. Yes, big thumbs up for me.
And looking at that, we just see all of these really cool connections people are making where SMART starts. I think now's probably a good time to close this poll. I know, sorry about that technical difficulty for Anna to be able to talk, but now we'll be segueing into, we're going to start the next portion of this event where the panelists will be answering these same questions. So panelists, take a good look at this screen, check out what everybody is thinking. You know, people are at the center. We got leaders, me, myself, I am at the center. No, I'm kidding. But yes, so I will stop screen sharing now and we can bring all the panelists to the forefront. So we have everybody here. You've already met 3 of us, but we'd love, or 4 of us, my apologies, oh my God. So you've met 4 of us, but we have 2 new people here joining the panelist team. If I'll pass it on to Gregory and then Derick to do a quick introduction before we get into the panel itself.
Thanks, Mary. So yeah, my name is Greg Delaune. I'm an architect, urban planner, and landscape architect. I also do a lot of economic development work, particularly sustainable economic development work, and I've worked internationally in that and also done a lot of teaching, master's programs in various studios, et cetera, working with sustainable economic development. I've got a couple different companies. My one company is called the Urban Innovation Exchange, or UIX Global, and UIX Global focuses on public-private partnerships for green cities and smart cities. And UIX Global had the pleasure to work with Debbie for a number of years in San Leandro and support the city in their journey towards becoming a smart city. And more recently, we've expanded our activity into the blue economy. So I've moved now back to my home city of New Orleans just last year in the middle of the pandemic and founded a company called the Deep Blue Institute, which is focused on the potential of the blue economy to help communities like New Orleans and other at-risk coastal communities and island communities with the future prospects of sea level rise and climate change, which is a huge deal for a lot of folks, particularly on the coast. And a big part of the blue economy is these different technologies that have to do with ensuring that we protect our oceans and safeguard the habitat in the oceans and coastal environments, et cetera, while we're also helping communities deal with climate change. So great to be here, and congratulations to the Smart Diaries team. It's been wonderful to watch you all pull all this together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for briefly summarizing all those cool things that you're all about. Passing it on to Derick, we'd love to hear what you're about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Derick Lee with PilotCity. I think at this point I can probably call Debbie mom as well. So thank you, mom.
It works.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the work that I helped to kind of start was actually spawned by coming back home from college about 9 years ago and discovering that my hometown here in San Leandro was transforming itself into a city of innovation. And because I met Debbie and discovered the fiber optic broadband loop installation and discovered that we're going to transform ourselves, I got excited as a young individual from my community. And so I realized that what we were talking a lot about, though, was attraction of startups and attraction of talent, but very little about the people who are actually from there to be the ones that help build the future of the community and the city. So I started realizing that not every community and city has a university to produce talent, or a college or community college, but every city and town does have a high school. So that became our start to a smart city. Essentially is to mobilize a massive engine of young people in our communities who are guaranteed from a community, who understand it, who know the problems, who probably have the solutions and can offer those solutions to their own community and to the employers that they build projects for. So we essentially run programs where students build projects for employers to win internships with them to pilot those projects in communities, from voice assistants for the gaming market to creating storytelling tools for sustainability and climate action, to developing apps for council members to connect citizens to the interests they have when a council meeting agenda pops up for them, the drones for post-disaster mapping. These are all projects that our students in our programs have developed across 45 different cities as of this year in 60 different schools. So excited about being here and excited to join my peers and colleagues and my mom in this effort, and really looking forward to this conversation.
And before we get started, I have to say about Greg and Derick, and I just realized with both of them on the screen here, that they represent really the internal and the external parts of the job that I had as CIO. So Greg was really instrumental in helping bring in the outside world into San Leandro, to bringing in new opportunities, new businesses, new ways of looking things from the outside to the inside. Great events, prototyping the future, on the rooftop with Burning Man art cars. And Derick, he was instrumental in making me look inside the city. That, Deb, it's not about necessarily just attracting opportunities from outside the city and investment. Let's look at what we've got going inside the city, especially with young people. And I will never forget the brief encounter I had with Herrick Fang, Derick's young cousin, and Herrick just rolls his eyes whenever I tell this story, but it's true. After the very first event that we had around smart cities, I had just joined as CIO, and he came to me with his eyes all sparkling, and maybe he was 14 or 15 years old. And he said to me, I thought that when I grew up, I'd have to leave San Leandro, go to college somewhere and never come back. You mean I can actually stay here and make a difference? So that's the challenge that we have for you today. Stay and make a difference. So, Mary, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you for those insights. I actually want to ask, we're going back, same 3 questions. I will repeat them so that people can remember. But I do want to give Anna some screen time maybe to start due to that technical difficulty. So if you're down to start off with, when you think of a smart city, what comes to mind? I think that'd be great. Really quickly, if everyone could kind of keep their answers within a 1.5 minute ratio so we can get through the questions and everyone can talk, that would be great.
I get it. Don't talk that much. Fair. Okay, so the first question: what do I think a smart city is? Correct?
Yeah. What comes to mind?
What comes to mind when I think of a smart city? Well, honestly, my mom is the first thing that comes to mind for me, because as a chief innovation officer, she was pretty much my only entree to this world. I am not in tech. I am not in smart cities. So for me, a smart city, I don't know. I'm thinking about smart cars. I'm thinking about, and I don't mean the brand. I mean, I realize now that's an actual brand of cars. I'm talking about, like, I don't know, next gen technology. I'm thinking of really shiny things. I'm thinking of stuff that floats. I don't know. I'm not in a smart city. I'm thinking of companies that are constantly mining my data. That's a real answer. I'm thinking of living in a surveillance state. I'm thinking about not the same things that people from the tech world are thinking about, basically. So that's my answer. What do I think is a smart city? But what I want a smart city to be is something that's about people. I want smart cities to be about tech and people working together to make something better than what we have right now. So those are my 2 answers: what I think it is, what I want it to be.
Awesome. We can popcorn style if somebody feels called to walk forward, or I can call on someone.
I'll go. So the initial start was really around, how do we have people advance our communities and our cities? And how do we have people initiate it? So really what it came down for us was, how do we have pilot projects occur? How do we have people who understand the problems of their local communities actually advance the solutions in their community by piloting new ideas that may occur? That may involve tech, that may not involve tech. It certainly may involve data and how we actually use data to advance our communities. Or involves just basically getting people all up to speed to the point where they can actually contribute effectively as a citizen or community member. That's really what it comes down to for myself. I'll popcorn over to Delaune.
Thanks, Derick. So I think for me, the concept that I always go to with smart cities really focuses on transparency. So transparency that the citizens can see what's going on with the city, that there's good communication, there's good access to people being in dialogue with the city. So referencing some of the other things that were talked about, Debbie talked a little bit about services from the city, et cetera. So I think a smart city is a city that can deliver good services effectively and efficiently. And essentially that comes down to reducing friction. There's a lot of different types of friction. One of those is bureaucracy. Some of it's cronyism. There's lots of different ways that efficient and effective delivery of services doesn't happen. So again, to the transparency, when there's good transparency, good communication, which to me really touches on Anna's idea of equity. And equity also to me implies empowerment. So when we have a city that's transparent, has good communication, has a good mission for the types of services and a way to deliver those services, then all of that can really happen, in my experience, in different parts of the world, really without any technology at all. It's really about people. It's about the people at the city. It's about local leaders, official leaders, and unofficial leaders. And that means that technology doesn't have to be at the center. But as we develop good technologies can really help us to create that, to reduce that friction and achieve all those different moving parts effectively and efficiently.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. We could popcorn to Anne.
Sure.
Talking for a bit.
Absolutely. It's interesting because when I think about this question, I come at this from two different heads on. I've been in technology and I've been in business for a long time. And so I see it in terms of the potential for smart cities to be somewhere around $129 billion industry and potentially to 20 trillion by 2026. Economic development, new opportunities, new innovation, that all, is exciting. I've worked with Cisco, I've worked with big companies who are trying to make big movements in the smart city area. On the other hand, I live in a city and I have to take public transportation and I have to interact with the city and I have to figure out where I'm going to park and figure out how I'm paying my water bill and is it right? And all these kind of things that a citizen, that a resident in a city has to deal with. And so there's this tension between these two different positions. And I just find it very interesting that in terms of what I was doing previously, a large part of it was theoretical. We were dealing with decision makers in cities who in some cases did not have a close relationship with their communities and were missing out on some of the information about what it takes on a day-to-day basis for people within the city to actually get things done. And so seeing now with Smart City Diaries, I think what this is able to do is drill down into the everyday lives of people interacting at this level and interacting with technology and figuring out the best ways, user interface design and feedback loops and engagement, figuring out ways to be able to effectively live a better daily life in their cities. So I'm very excited about this from these two separate standpoints. Thanks.
And pivoting off of what Anne just said, it's like when I was Chief Innovation Officer, the canned speech that I would give as well, Smart City is one that has ways of collecting data that data helps improve decision making for the city leaders. Well, that's kind of a sterile response, isn't it? Especially there's a lot of assumptions about who's collecting the data, security issues, privacy issues. So what I'm learning very rapidly is that people have to be at the center of this. People have to be the ones engaged in deciding what their smart city looks like. Technology is pretty much inevitable, right? We pivoted all during COVID. We learned that we have now become a digital economy, for better, for worse. Look at this amazing podcast. I wouldn't have done this a year ago, or even pre-COVID. Wouldn't have occurred to me to do something like this. So for me, looking at smart cities, I really want to start seeing people and engagement and design being important in how we move forward to that. And Mary, I don't want to leave you out, even though you're the moderator. What do you think about this subject?
Yeah, I think kind of tying everybody's thoughts together, the thing that comes to my mind is a symbiotic relationship on all fronts. So a smart city to me would look like humans, being symbiotic with each other, being symbiotic with the planet and nature, so like everything that we're developing is coming from this lens of like net positive interaction and how we engage. So if you have conversations about zero energy, about solar energy, about connected grids, or even just how we map and lay out our cities, or how schools are set up, and redlining, and conversations about districting, all of those things that tie in these conversations about transparency and equity and bridging the gap between the abstract and being on the ground. I think that comes in the word of symbiotic, a symbiotic relationship of all living entities within the city realm. And so that's the things that come to my mind. Before we hop on to next questions, I did want to say it is 6 p.m. So folks who did stop by saying, I'm only here for 5 to 6, I have to head out. Check out the chat. Zach dropped in our Discord, which early adopters have first access to. So you get inside scoop to all things Smart City Diaries. So if you have to head out, it's okay. You got that Discord link so you can stay in touch with us. For those who can stay, I expect we'll be here for another 15, 20 minutes or so we can go through those next two questions and also do a quick Q&A rundown of the Discord, the other things that you can get involved with. So just that quick 5 cents there. But yeah, so thinking about things that are symbiotic, when I think of the question, can you name a smart city? My question is, what are cities that are doing that are really bridging all of these key things that we're thinking? Equity, transparency, like symbiotic dynamics, technology or the lack thereof in community-based things. So yeah, passing it on to whoever would be interested in sharing their 5 cents.
I'm going to kick this off just because it's something I've thought about. We all look around the world and there's certain cities like Singapore and Barcelona that typically get labeled as smart cities. What I look for, and I'm seeing in smaller cities, like, for example, I'm very impressed with Coral Gables and the work that Raimundo has been doing as CIO over in Coral Gables, who's a member of our GCTC team.
That's Florida, for anyone who doesn't know.
Florida, right. Where the interactions with the community and developing exactly what it is that the community wants is an important element of how they are proceeding with their technology. So privacy, security is an integral part of how city deployment, how city technology is deployed. And I was just reading an article in Smart City Dive today that says that 80% of cities, when they roll out technology, don't even consider security in that or the privacy of their citizens. So that's a problem for cities, and it's something we want cities to take a deeper look at.
Also, I thought the question was just to name if you can actually name a smart city. That was what I thought the question was, but is welcome to the podcast, kids. And so, I mean, for someone like me who all of the cities that I would think to name basically were in the trailer that we did for the original Smart City Diaries pilot episode back when we were a TV show, because I'm not like I said, I'm newer to this world. So my answer probably would be Singapore, because it is the most obvious and it is what everybody, it's that iconic smart city / country. So that's my first answer. I mean, I could say San Leandro, but if I'm being honest, by my definition of a smart city, I think smart city is more aspirational. So if I'm going to go by the existing definition of smart city, I guess it's Singapore.
Yeah,
you want to go back?
Yeah, I'd like to share just a thought. It's not really answering the question, but it's interesting kind of statistic. There's 19,500 cities in the United States, right? And there's cities and towns. 98% of them are under 100,000 in population. And 92% of them are under 10,000 in population. Wow. So when we're talking about smart cities and smart towns, we're really talking about how do the peripheral cities and the peripheral communities of the metropolis become smart cities too? Or can they, or are they? And what allows them to get started? So in that definition, there's a wider definition, right, around how a small town can be smart as well. Perhaps it's a particular school and how they do things with their curriculum. Perhaps it's something about the government, the process that they embark on to optimize the process. It could be a range of different connection points, as Debbie always shares, the dots connecting to make things work effectively because of a best practice that's utilized in that community. So I'm not answering the question, but I'm answering the negative space around the question. So
That's good.
What you're really saying is maybe nobody's that smart yet, but keep going.
Yeah, so in my experience, there's certainly a lot of cities out there that are billing themselves as smart cities, and they come to mind, and Singapore is one of them. I think one worth pointing out is Amsterdam, and from my experience and working with the Dutch and the Dutch government and the cooperation that happens between the Dutch government and their major corporations and the citizens, and the bikeability and walkability of the city, and how that has been managed. And there's just a lot of things that I think Amsterdam is a good example of in terms of a lot of the things that I talked about in terms of transparency and communication and all that. So if you don't know much about Amsterdam, be a fun one to check out to learn about some of the ways they do that.
And the Dutch is where I hail from. So I'm delighted to hear that. I come
She
from
is
good
Dutch.
stock.
She
Yes.
comes from the Dutch. It's
In
very
spite of my
serious.
last name.
I just like to piggyback on that and add that I think that Scandinavia has a jump on this whole thing. You know, Copenhagen, for example, is trying to hit carbon neutrality by 2025. I think there's some people. Can you guys hear me okay?
There's a little bit of a delay.
Okay, well, just quickly, and what's interesting about that, I live in Portland. There's the same kind of emphasis on biking, which, you know, is designed to really change the relationship of people to their environments. If you're in a car, you're insulated from your interaction with other people, but you get on a bike and suddenly it changes your whole interaction with people. So I think what's happening now and has been for the last few years is that smart cities are learning from each other, and they're seeing what works in certain places, and they're able to map that if there's similarities in their own cities. And so I think what's happening is a lot of smaller cities or communities, towns are taking the lessons learned and the best practices from a lot of these different places and knitting them into something that's customized or tailored for what their important things, their important issues are. And maybe they're starting with a couple of them and then they'll scale from there, so that you can't do everything all at one time, but you start with the low-hanging fruit and then you sort of build out from there to address some of those other issues. So thanks.
And then Debbie, do you wanna offer some food for thought?
Well, I kind of, I did. So Mary, how about you?
Yes, I'm like, I'm avoiding answering my questions. I want to piggyback off of what Derick said for just a really quick thought. I think something that's really curious to think about is that space of education and how folks receive education and how accessible, engaging in aspects of education is, particularly political education. And so when I think of what would make a city smart, again, not fully answering the question, since I think everyone listed places that came to my mind, but when I'm thinking of my deep dive into finding places, I would be really interested in a K through 12 curriculum that teaches its residents how to engage civically, local government, sure, but also in how to organize and mobilize around issues that are important to them, both within the confines of the policy, legal systems of their city, and also just within the culture and community and doing things for themselves. I remember Deborah, Anna, you guys have a really great conversation in the first podcast about communities building their own solar grids outside of cities, outside of corporations, doing their own thing within their own neighborhood. I thought that was awesome when I listened to the podcast. So that was something that came to my mind about a smart city. I'm trying to remember where you guys mentioned, but that was my immediate thought.
You all can find it if you listen to the first episode, which is now ready and up for streaming on various platforms. Head to our website to find a comprehensive list.
Yes.
Sorry. Back to you, Mary.
And so we do have our last question so that we can wrap this up, let people go have their dinner, relax on a Friday evening.
Or join us on Discord.
Yeah, join us. Hang out on Discord while you have dinner on your when it comes to creating a smart city, where does smart start? So who wants to kick us off?
Somebody other than the hosts.
I mean, I'll do it.
Right, okay, go for it.
So to me, my perception of where smart starts is I think about the people. Honestly, it kind of ties into the work that Derick is doing. I'm thinking about teenagers. Because to me, it is going to be it's always going to be the brains that are less encumbered by what their confirmation bias, the beliefs about what is or isn't possible, what we can or can't do because it's what is or hasn't been done, or it's what's being done or what hasn't been done. There's so much of that adults, I think, and I'm no exception, we get mired down in the bureaucracy and entrenched in, well, this is the way, well, this is how things must be done, because if we changed, then that would somehow invalidate my entire life's work. And I think that reticence to change. So for me, smart has to start with the brains that don't shut themselves down as much. And that's younger people. So, and it probably literally starts more like in City Hall or city council meetings. But to me, where really smart starts, it's going to be with imaginations.
So I'll jump in. I really like the word cloud, and that at home popped out. So at home and people, I think that's really important, again, to the things that I lean on in terms of transparency and communication, and in the case of city government, accountability. So I think there's always a real challenge about getting people engaged and believing that they can make a difference. So I think that starting with people at home is really important. And I think a technology component of that is Wi-Fi. So San Leandro is a good example of getting more people access to broadband, but because people don't have time to show up at City Hall every night, I think that's a really, really important part of that. And that's where I would lean.
But we're talking infrastructure there, and I'm there convinced. So we can absolutely talk about, when we talk about at home, we all need to be connected to excellent broadband, right? For those of us, I was on, I've been a part of PilotCity's broadcast, and I can see that the young people who don't have access to good broadband, right? They're really limited in their ability to do this digital interactions, both with the employers, with each other, because they keep cutting out, because they really don't have that great experience. So definitely for me, the point of it starting with people is that we really have to invest in our broadband. It's starting with our broadband infrastructure in terms of smart cities. We have to make sure that people first have access to the tech. They actually have the ability to access the technology from their homes and from their businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think the conversation around how the city planning starts influences that aspect of the conversation of, how do people get their Wi-Fi? How do people get their water? How does sewage come in and out of your city? Where do you guys genuinely know where your sewage goes or where you get your water from?
And how it impacts everything.
Right. And so I think going back to what Gregory said about transparency, right? It shouldn't be a minefield to figure out those basic things and
right.
to be involved in the process of deciding it. But looking at how a lot of just things have been set up, things are super entrenched, and it takes a lot to figure out where things are. I was talking with a friend of mine recently who was going on a search to really figure out who owns what land in San Jose, and found that you had to actually go to the year that the deed was made to find out who specifically owns what land. And the research process to actually do that for a city with over 1 million people that sprawls for like very, very far would be incredibly tedious to do and probably take years, if not a lifetime, right? So that conversation of transparency along the starting point of a city and how it is designed and laid out, I think is where SMART starts. Really quickly before Anne and Derick give their food for thought to close out this question, if you are down to stay for the Q&A starting around 6:20 for a handful of minutes, please drop your questions in the chat and direct them to any speaker. We'll only pick 2 or 3, probably 2 questions, and folks can also type their answers. Speakers, if you'd like to go to the chat and type some answers, that'd be awesome. But so drop those in while Anne and Derick answer the question if they choose so.
I'll jump in, Ben. Oh, I'm having trouble with my sound. I don't know what's happening here. Well, let me just say that I think that SMART is iterative, and that they're really, if you know that somebody else is doing something in a better way, that it inspires you to want to do things in a better way. And so there's no real end to it either. It's going to continue iterating on the previous version of what SMART is. I think we have an amazing opportunity right now with all this money that's coming in support of infrastructural reconditioning in our country. I mean, we're seeing the bridges and the roads crumbling, but there's just been a dearth of digital infrastructure for a lot of people who are rural, remote, and even within urban environments where there's no money for reasonable digital support. So I think we have an opportunity now to start with people and to figure out what the challenges are that people are facing. But now there are some deep pockets available to actually bring some solutions to some of these challenges that we've been plagued with for a long time. So it's an exciting time to take a look at how we do actually, where the rubber meets the road, in taking some very deep looks at the equitable or the lack of equity in how these solutions manifest. And I'm excited about what's going to be coming.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anne. I think we talk about this a lot in our conversations, right? Around what is a smart city. And I would say that it probably starts with the intent of what a smart city is in the first place. And there's some British guy on a panel one time inspired me to think this way, but it seems like it tends to be 2 things, data and equity. What's interesting about those 2 focuses as an intent, equity specifically, is that we're putting city into a word, right? We're talking about governance, and we're talking about jurisdictions. We're talking about locations and the systems within that jurisdiction or that ecosystem. And typically the governance system is what, enrolls the rest of the community in some shape or format. And the purpose of a governance system or a purpose of a city is to serve everybody, right? With the tax dollars provided to them. And all the resources that are available to them. And when you're talking about everybody, you're really talking about only one part of everybody, right? When it comes down to it, because the people who already have the resources are already taken care of, right? Because they already have motivation, confidence, resources, parents, that motivate them, the culture and so forth. It's really about the so-called bottom half of people who are not getting the resources. That's really the purpose of it, right? So if we look at it in that lens, the people who need the services, who need the resources, then we're talking about the intent of equity, right? So I think equity really is the main intent, and that's where it should be starting, because it's for the purpose of governing a jurisdiction and serving everybody with the right resources. So with that intent, it all makes a lot of sense now. And how do we serve those people? Well, I think that's the second and third step, which isn't the start. But the point is that, at some point there needs to be data, there needs to be insights, there needs to be information to serve those people. And that's where technology comes in, because technology, whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's, software platforms, whatever, they provide the information for us to make good decisions for our citizens and community members who could use it the most, right? And then I think, this is me getting to not start, but second and third now. But, I think at some point we need trust built into the system too, so that people are able to give the information to then allow people to make the decisions for them to be served, right, as well. So I think there's a loop going on there. but it starts with the launching point of serving everybody, specifically people who need it the most, right? So that's my answer to where SMART starts: equity.
And I love that it's, understanding that trust is so important, and entities must become trustworthy to be
trust
trusted.
is earned. Trust is not given.
Earned. Right.
So, thank you everyone for staying with us this long through our brainstorming activity and this wonderful panel. It was great to be in community with all of you here, all of you fellow speakers. And so, we're going to have, I think I'll pass it on to Zach, I believe, for doing a run through of next steps, how to join the Discord, all those 9 yards. And then we didn't see any questions in the chat. That's okay. If you want to come to our Discord and drop some questions, I know we're having a party over there. Everyone's saying hello, dropping some emojis. So definitely come over that way. And thank you all so much. And thank you to the rest of the Smart City Diaries team.
Right. And after Zach explains how you can continue to stay connected with us, please stay around for our closing video. I think you'll enjoy it.
Hi there. If you'd like to join our Discord, please check out the chat and click on the hyperlinked Discord link right there. It's pretty hard to miss. It's all in blue. And I'm not going to read it out because it's kind of long. But just look for my message and I'll put it one more time. It's a copy and paste. Just click on that link. And if you have a Discord account, it'll prompt you to just open up your Discord and join. If you do not have one, you can easily make one, just how you make an account almost anywhere else. So with that, yes, I believe we're going to do one last thing to close it off.
And just to remind you, the first 2 episodes, the prologue, where Anna and I kind of explain what the heck this is all about. I think it's a pretty interesting discussion. And then about the broadband infrastructure, the little tutorial on how you get that data into your house. How does it actually happen? And it's all about hardware at that point. So anyway, let's go.
Pass it on to Brandon.
You beat me to it. I was going to say the same exact thing. Our first 2 episodes are up, and there's more to come over the next weeks and months. And we're going to be having a whole bunch of supplementary content too on our Patreon, and full interviews and little shorts and blogs from Debbie and Anna. So we're putting out a whole bunch of content over the next few months, and we would love to hear your feedback. We're starting this new, so we want to hear what you think. We want to hear how we can be better, because we're all in this together. And with that, I will play us out with our trailer.
I'm Anna Acosta.
And I'm Deborah Acosta.
And welcome to the Smart City Diaries podcast.
We are your guides to the world of innovation, opening a door to a living laboratory, our very own planet.
Through each and every episode, we aim to bring to you the exciting, transformative, and sometimes downright weird transformations coming soon to your village, town, or metropolis.
And what are we talking about? We're talking digital equity, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, green energy, smart housing, self-driving cars, telemedicine, big data, education, transportation, money, and so much more. And of course, we plan to be having some fun along the way.
If that wasn't enough, we are going to be talking to you, our community, because you are the people who will be driving our transformation into a better world. So join us on this adventure so that we can answer the question, what is a smart city?